The magical run continues for the Sacramento Kings. Perfection from the All-Star break on during this playoff race. And tonight they beat the Los Angeles Clippers again. This time a low-scoring affair for these two teams compared to last time they played, 128-127. The final score, another game decided by just 1 point. And the Sacramento Kings have become masters of one-point games. I'll explain right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all regular season long. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports reporter and producer for ABC 10. It was so great to be back here in the Golden One Center where, of course, Sacramento Kings fans showed up and showed out tonight. A great atmosphere inside the G1C, tying the attendance record in this building. I'll get into that more at the end of the podcast. But this game could have been on a Monday night with school the next day, a busy work day, and tax day the next day, and still this fan base would have shown up the way they did this evening. In fact, the party is still going on outside of the Golden One Center right now all over downtown Sacramento, and it makes you think and makes you daydream about what that environment is going to be like both in this building and outside this building when the Kings make the playoffs and we're having playoff basketball here in Sacramento a little over a month from now. Why do I continue to be so confident with the Kings actually making the playoffs and at this point confident in the Kings having home court advantage in the opening round of the playoffs? It's because this team keeps on winning and they do so in so many different ways. It's just been a magical run, of course, this season for this team, a position we never thought the Kings would be in. 12 games over 500, 37 and 25 on the season. It is an absolute blast right now. Of course, the fans are soaking it all in and enjoying every single moment. I've talked to and seen a lot of fans who are coming back to Kings basketball. They checked out during these 16 years of losing. They're coming back. And, well, some people would call them fair weather fans. It's hard to blame them for checking out in the first place. I'm just glad to see Sacramento so aggressively rallying around this team really for the first time since the relocation era and the scare of this team leaving for Seattle. But even then, that rally was nothing compared to this rally of fan support for a great Sacramento Kings team. And they keep doing it in different ways, whether it's scoring 176 points the last time the Kings and Clippers played each other, and whether it's shooting lights out from three-point range, whether it's on the back of DeAaron Fox or Domantas Sabonis, or whether it's a bunch of different guys stepping up, whether it's at the free throw line like it was tonight, and free throws are going to be a big topic of conversation this evening. There's so many different ways that the Sacramento Kings have shown that they can win basketball games. And in fact, in games decided by 1 point, the Kings are 5-0. Now, to me, this speaks volumes about the experience or lack thereof of the Sacramento Kings. Mike Brown has talked a lot over the course of this season. He's quieted down about it a bit recently, but he's talked a lot about how this team and this group kind of needed to learn how to win these games and be in this position that they hadn't been in before, a playoff race, in the playoffs themselves, to learn how to win these games. And you kind of got to be there and do it or experience it to learn it, right? This team still lacks that playoff experience. However, this group that, if you're looking at the core of Fox and Sabonis, have barely been together for over a year. You look at the rest of this group and how many pieces were added this offseason. This core, this team, has really not been together that long, and yet they've shown a vast ability to win close games in so many different ways, to close games out, high-pressure games, not just in this building, but on the road. For this team to be 5-0 in games decided by 1 point, that's tremendous for this team and their confidence going forward. That suggests that when things go down to the wire on the biggest stage, when the lights are brightest and the pressure is on, and believe me, the Los Angeles Clippers put a crap ton of pressure on the Sacramento Kings tonight and nearly stole this game. The Kings find ways to make it happen. Now, sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's just pure stubbornness on the Kings' part. Sometimes it's fantastic execution. Sometimes it's a combination of them. Luck was certainly involved in this game, but also execution from the free throw line ties into things too. The Sacramento Kings like I said, nearly had this game stolen from underneath them. Paul George snuck in and hit a big three to put the Clippers up. Then Domantas Sabonis answered with a big bucket to put the Kings back on top. Then Paul George scores at the rim. Kings fail to convert. DeAaron Fox misses a shot. So the Clippers have possession, and they get away with a 8-second violation in the backcourt. The refs allow them to take their time crossing half court with the Kings full court pressure trying to force a turnover. But in the end, the basketball gods give us a little bit of justice here as suddenly the Clippers throw the ball out of bounds. They were trying to get the ball to Russell Westbrook. Pass was way over his head. It wasn't Russell's fault this time. And the ball goes out of bounds, and suddenly the Kings have the possession back with 15 seconds left. So, of course, it's going to go to DeAaron Fox. Fox misses another game-winner attempt, but Domantas Sabonis is there at the rim to try and clean things up. Misses the putback, but is fouled, steps to the free throw line, drains both clutch free throws. Just another way that the Sacramento Kings find a way to win. And this game is not only significant for the experience conversation like we're talking about, this game is extremely significant in terms of standings. But before we get into that, and before we get into all the tiebreaker implications from tonight's win, I will say, if we're focusing on the negative a little bit, ultimately the Kings won. Mike Brown started his press conference after the game saying that this certainly was not the best performance for the Sacramento Kings, and he thought the Kings still won. I thought it was vice versa. I thought the Kings they led after all 3 quarters. They had a 13-point lead at one point in the fourth quarter. They were in full control of this game for the majority of the night. However, it did go back and forth, but the Clippers were never really able to pull away. Sacramento was, for the most part, in control the majority of this evening. Paul George, like I said, nearly steals this game away, but the Kings also kind of gave it to him. They took their foot off the gas a little bit. Now, credit to the Clippers. They're playing with a little bit of desperation right now, so they tried to close the gap and were able to close the gap there at the end and nearly take this game away. So Sacramento is going to need to do a better job of closing out games, especially on their home floor when they get into those playoff scenarios. But ultimately, as much as I could be frustrated at the Kings for raising my blood pressure too much and not closing this game out when they had the opportunity to in the fourth quarter, ultimately, they still got the win. All wins count the same, and that's what's important. Now, let's talk a little bit about, actually, before we get into the implications of tonight's game and the significance of tonight's game, after the game, I asked DeAaron Fox about how this team has been so successful, 5-0, winning these games that are decided by 1 point. And here's what he had to say. DeAaron, I believe this is the 5th game this season that has been decided by 1 point for you guys, and you guys have won all 5. There's been a lot of talk about this team's lack of experience or playoff experience or anything like that, but what does that show about the experience of this team to win those close games?
I mean, you got to be able to finish games at the end of the day. Obviously, you would love to be in blowout wins, but when the game gets close, I mean, that's what, any competitor wants to experience, being in close games. So, hopefully this is getting us geared up for the playoffs and playing the same team. It could be 7 times, could be 4 times. So, with us seeing them last week and then seeing them again today, that could also be a playoff matchup. And you want to be able to go into games, have adjustments. You're going to see different looks. You're going to see just a ton of different things, and you want to be able to finish games and execute at the end of games.
I mentioned free throw shooting was a very significant part of tonight's game, too. The Kings, a perfect 26 of 26 from the free throw line. That is a single-game franchise record for the Sacramento Kings. 26 straight made free throws. And how many times have we seen free throw shooting be the bane of the Kings' existence so far this season? It seems like it's feast or famine for this team. Well, tonight it was definitely feast, and they were gotta-have-it free throws, not just at the very end that Domantas Sabonis hit, the 2 free throws that he hit on this basket here behind me, but over the course of this game. The Kings did a good job when they were sent to the line, obviously executing, not missing a single free throw, and that was the key difference in this game. So a franchise record there. Great to see the Sacramento Kings use something that sometimes is not too reliable for them, but to lean on that to get this victory. Again, another example of how this team keeps finding different ways to ultimately win games, the same way good championship veteran teams do. Now let's talk about what this game means playoff-wise and tiebreaker-wise. The Sacramento Kings, now at 37-25, are 6 games up on the Los Angeles Clippers. Remember, going into that Friday night game, last Friday night, that historic 176-175 game, the Clippers were right behind the Kings in the standings. I think they were 2 games back. Had the Kings lost that game and the Clippers won, of course, they would be just 1 game back. Well, I believe the Clippers have lost 5 straight. I don't think they have won since Russell Westbrook joined the team. I don't think it's fully fair to put all that on Russell Westbrook, but it's easy for NBA fans and NBA media to do. They are trending, obviously, in the wrong direction, and this is a team with championship aspirations. Now, granted, Kawhi Leonard did not play tonight on the second night of a back-to-back, and it's probably a good thing for the Sacramento Kings that he did not, even though this game was very different three-point shooting-wise. Both teams struggled from three-point land compared to in Los Angeles when both teams, particularly the Los Angeles Clippers, could not miss from beyond the arc. But the Kings able to pull this one out, beat a Clippers team on the second night of a back-to-back that was shorthanded without their star, or one of their stars in Kawhi Leonard, and create now a 6-game cushion on the Los Angeles Clippers. The Kings go 3-1 against the Clippers this season. Their one loss was in this building, and it was the second game of the season. The Kings lost by 2 points to the Paul George-led Los Angeles Clippers in that game. I don't know if you remember that. It seems like a lifetime ago during that Kings 0-4 start, right? But that was the only time the Kings lost to the Clippers this season. So going 3-1 against the Clippers, they naturally have the tiebreaker against Los Angeles. I don't think there's going to be any reason why that's going to be needed unless the Kings slide a little bit and the Clippers figure things out quickly and go on a major run here at the end of the season. But even if these two teams ended up tied, the Kings ultimately have the tiebreaker. But here's the key that a lot of people don't realize. Had the Kings lost this game tonight, not only would the Clippers have gained ground a little bit on them, they would have lost all opportunity at winning the tiebreaker, or all chance of winning the tiebreaker against the Phoenix Suns. Because of how the tiebreaker works, the Kings only have 2 games left against Phoenix. The Kings are already 0-2 against Phoenix. The best the Kings can do is tie the Phoenix Suns at 2-2 in the series, right? At that point, once the series is tied, it comes down to divisional records and divisional standings and all sorts of caveats. Well, had the Kings lost to the Clippers tonight, the Kings, it would have been impossible. Even if the Kings beat the Suns both times, the Suns would have owned the tiebreaker over the Kings. And that could be massive considering that the Phoenix Suns are in 4th place in the Western Conference. They're really the team that, they're the biggest threat in most people's eyes to catching the Kings and displacing them in that 3rd spot. So not only was this game big against Los Angeles, this game was big against Phoenix. It's awesome to see how this team continues to recognize moment after moment, or face obstacle after obstacle, or significant moments step into every single game. There are significant undertones or storylines and mathematical impacts on this race with every single game that the Sacramento Kings play. And the fact that they're handling their business, and something that we talked a lot about is controlling your destiny, right? If the Kings continue to win games, there's nothing any team that can do to stop them, right? Of course, I don't think the Kings are going to go undefeated for the remainder of the season, although that would be awesome to see. I certainly expect this win streak to get to 6 as the Kings play the Timberwolves in this building tomorrow night. But reasonably, we don't expect this team to go undefeated for the remainder of this season, right? But the fact that, yes, there are so many games remaining for the Kings. The Kings and the Memphis Grizzlies, I think, are the 2 teams with the most games remaining in the Western Conference. A lot of those games against other Western Conference opponents, and lo and behold, here are the Sacramento Kings, 5-0 since the All-Star break and since this race truly started. 2 of those wins against a team directly behind them in the standings. 3 of those wins on the road. This Kings team keeps stepping up when it matters. It is time for the Nissan Most Electric Player of the Week, brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. It's easy for me to choose this Nissan Electric Player of the Week, as long as the incredible streak of DeAaron Fox and his 30-point games continues. He will be that Player of the Week every single time. Now, if I could give it to a coach, I might give it to Coach Mike Brown, considering he's coming off of Coach of the Month recognition, which, of course, he absolutely deserved. But DeAaron Fox, just like the Nissan Ariya, is brilliantly fierce, fiercely elegant, stunningly powerful, elegantly powerful. You know, it's interesting that powerful is the word being used, because you look at DeAaron Fox, he's not the biggest. You look at his legs, he certainly is not the most built player, but he's free or sneaky strong, and that's actually something that Matthew Dellavedova talked about at NBA Media Day or Sacramento Kings Media Day at the beginning of the season. Dellavedova was asked about guarding DeAaron and playing against DeAaron so far in, I think it was either training camp at that time or just pickup games during the offseason, and Dellavedova said, yeah, he's powerful. He's a lot stronger than I realized, and he shows that with how he's able to finish through contact both in the air and on the ground in the paint amongst the bigs of the NBA. He's elegant, he's fierce, he's electrifying, and he is strong. DeAaron Fox is our Nissan Electric Player of the Week. You already heard from DeAaron Fox earlier in the show, but now let's talk about DeAaron Fox. His streak continues, 30-point games. Fox is making them look easy. 33 points tonight, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Also a steal for number 5. Swipa has now scored 30 or more points in 8 straight games and in 10 of his last 11 games. Again, some people still don't think he has achieved superstar status. That's fine. If you don't want to label DeAaron Fox as a superstar because of your reasons, that is your prerogative. It's more opinion than fact at this point. However, when you look at what superstars do on the biggest stage, when it matters most, DeAaron Fox continues to deliver for the Sacramento Kings. He had only 10 points at halftime, but we know second half, fourth quarter, that's when DeAaron Fox comes alive. And even though he missed the 2 big shots at the end, different guys stepped up. And I want to talk about that a little bit because not only was it Domantas Sabonis who's been the Robin to Fox's Batman, or sometimes Fox has been the Robin to Sabonis' Batman at times. Sabonis had a great game as well. 23 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal, a block. He was everywhere. Of course, I already mentioned the clutch free throws that he hit to ultimately win this game. So different heroes on different nights, right? But this team keeps getting these moments, keeps getting different guys to step up in different ways. And I'm going to give you an abundance of examples here in a second. But before we get to that, speaking about Fox and Sabonis, Mike Brown talked about the two of them getting recognition or getting consideration for all NBA teams. Now, when Mike Brown was talking about them getting the recognition they deserve as All-Stars, I was gung-ho 100% behind it, right? All NBA is a completely different beast, right? Because All-Star is the best players in the league, right? The best, what is it? No, it's not 30 players. Whatever it is, best 20, whatever it is, players, right? Still a very, very great group. All NBA is the 15 best, and it's becoming less positional and more just the best NBA teams that you can put together based off of regular season performances. I think Domantas Sabonis is a very, very good shot at all the NBA as a center, as a big man. I think all NBA third team is a very realistic possibility for Sabonis. He's not going to go ahead of Joel Embiid. He's, of course, not going to go ahead of Nikola Jokic. DeAaron Fox, as much as great as he's doing in the numbers that he's putting up, like all NBA is again, another tier. And while I would love to see both Fox and Sabonis get the recognition in the all NBA that Mike Brown seems to think they deserve, I think that's a bit of a long shot. Just me personally. Maybe that's me being pessimistic. Maybe that's not me being the most fair towards them and what they're doing here in Sacramento. And you remember, if you listen to me making arguments for the two of them, but especially DeAaron Fox during the All-Star race, you know how much I took into account what the Sacramento Kings are doing and their turnaround. Of course, I think that should be under consideration, but in all NBA, it's all about star power and it's all about numbers. And believe it or not, in some ways, DeAaron Fox's numbers are down. This isn't the best scoring season that he's ever had. I would argue what he's doing right now is far more impactful, and it's ultimately winning basketball, but his averages have been higher in the past, unless that's changed. I haven't looked at his averages recently during this 30-game stretch, but as far as I understand, he's still either right around or just below a couple of seasons ago when he was averaging like 26, 27 points per game or something like that. Again, could have changed, and I could have been wrong, but at this point in time, even if he was over that, let's say he was at 27, 28 points per game, I still don't know if that, as a guard, makes an all-NBA team. And if it does, in my opinion, his only shot is all-NBA third team, which I will happily take. Fox and Sabonis on the all-NBA third team and the Sacramento Kings, a top seed with home court advantage in the playoffs. Yeah, that's close to a perfect season as it gets outside of the Kings making an actual legitimate championship run. But let's talk about the rest of this team, right? Because we know how important Fox and Sabonis are, right? And the Kings lean heavily on them in so many ways. But over the course of the season, you've had different guys step up at different times. Let's talk about tonight. And I actually want to start with a bench player. Like Trey Lyles had 10 points tonight. He had 2 crucial threes, a corner 3 right here and a wing 3 off of I think it was a DeAaron Fox steal in transition over there in the second half. Those were big difference-maker buckets. Plus, he was aggressive. He attacked the rim, I think, in the first half and drew a foul. Or I don't know if he drew a foul. I can't remember if he drew a foul or finished through contact. But either way, like an aggressive offensive Trey Lyles, 10 points is not the most impressive. You look at his box score and you go, okay, he's the only King with double digits off of the bench. But still, those points in a game that's decided by 1 point, they are essential. And Trey's been doing that consistently all season long. He hasn't necessarily had the explosive games that like Malik Monk, who scored 40+. I think he scored, 46 or 45? Last time the Kings played the Clippers last Friday night. So maybe it's not as explosive as that, or when Terrence Davis scored over 30 on national TV in this building against the Brooklyn Nets. But he's consistently able to be that offensive presence that the Kings need with that second unit. And he's hit big shots in multiple different occasions when it matters. I could say the same thing about Keegan Murray. Tonight, he had 14 points, had 4 3-pointers. 3 of those 4 were in the first quarter. Keegan Murray got the Kings going offensively in this game, as did Kevin Huerter. 18 points, 6 of 9 shooting from the field, 3 of 4 from three-point range. I mentioned the explosiveness of Malik Monk. Tonight, I think he only had 4 points. Didn't have that great of a game, but still made some good decisions playmaking-wise, which has become a significant role for him off the bench. Davion Mitchell seems to be playing with a lot more confidence offensively. He's coming off of a 15-point game the other night with DeAaron Fox being out, and he looked great putting the ball on the floor, had a beautiful up and under move, and also a great step back mid-range jumper that he hit. So he's playing with a little more confidence on the offensive end, which is great to see. I also already mentioned like Terrence Davis's explosiveness. Like, there's just so many guys on this roster. Harrison Barnes scored 29 points in a win the other night. There's so many guys on this roster that are capable of stepping up. And I asked Kevin Huerter about that and about how this team, how it's getting to a more significant level than just, this team has a bunch of guys that can score. This team consists of a bunch of guys that step up when needed. And it's not just the same 3 or 4 guys. It's 8, sometimes 9 different guys that are stepping up and significantly contributing to winning basketball. Here's what Kevin had to say about that.
We've done it all year. We've done it all year. Obviously, right now, there's a great sense of urgency every night to keep trying to stack wins. We're in a dogfight here in the standings, obviously in the home stretch here this season. So I think we feel the sense of urgency. Domas, that was obviously huge, him stepping up and making those free throws. DeAaron has just been aggressive, really consistently. Every game, it feels like, for the last month, just imposing his will. That's something that great players do, obviously, all season long, and going to need him to do for us moving forward. But we've done it all year. We've had guys, I don't know how many guys for our team have scored 30, how many guys have been in 20s consistently, but really 1 through 10, the guys in rotation, we're confident we can score.
Today's episode of the Longton Kings podcast is also brought to you by Built Bars. Now we're in March. You made it this far, and hopefully you're still going strong on your New Year's resolutions. But even those of you that maybe you took a little bit of a break or you had a little bit of a setback, you don't have to give up. There's still so much of the year ahead of you to get right. Or maybe you didn't realize that you wanted to set the New Year's resolution of eating better, or maybe putting on more muscle, getting more protein in your diet, losing weight, just feeling overall better. Well, Built Bar can help you with that. You don't have to start at 2024, in January 2024. Start right now by using Built products. And here's the best part. You don't have to sacrifice your sweet tooth in order for you to accomplish these goals. Built Bars are covered in 100% chocolate. They're delicious. There's so many different flavors, like brownie, like coconut almond, like churro. My favorite is mint brownie that you can try. Plus, they have their Built granola bars. They have their marshmallow puffs, which are protein-infused marshmallows. And look, all these things are good for you. They give you energy, they give you protein, and they satisfy that sweet tooth without packing on the calories. We're talking only 130 calories on average in these bars, 17 grams of protein. These things are packed, they are delicious, they are incredible, and now you don't have to wait to order a box and have it shipped to you. You can go to Walmart or Sam's Club, get a box right now in the pharmacy section, try out all their great flavors. You won't be disappointed. I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast the Kings' attendance, 18,111. That ties the attendance record here for a Kings game inside of the Golden One Center, a record that they set twice against the Dallas Mavericks. I actually wasn't aware of that. I knew this team crested 18,000 against Portland the first game after the All-Star break, and people were saying, hey, that's close to the record. I didn't realize the record was 18,111, and I didn't realize that record had been set just a month ago or so, or even less than a month ago, in this building in those two games against Dallas. Well, I don't know if that 18,111 is full capacity with standing room only. I know there aren't actually 18,000 seats in this building, so there were standing room only tickets sold, I believe, unless they somehow mysteriously added seats that I am not aware of. Either way, if that is the maximum number, I expect to see that maximum number basically every night for the remainder of the season. And of course, if that number is going to be broken and they're going to add more seats, they might need to find a way to do that for playoff basketball with how crazy the city is going to go over that. But congratulations for at least tying that record or setting that record recently here. The Golden One Center crowds have been absolutely incredible, and I expect it to be like that tomorrow night against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are coming off a win over the Los Angeles Lakers tonight. Yeah, you remember the Lakers, that team that said that they want to face the Kings in the opening round of the playoffs? Well, I don't think the Kings have to worry about them. The Timberwolves handed them a loss tonight, 110-102, the final score. The Timberwolves are now 33-32, one game over 500, and they are in the 7th spot, 5.5 games back of the Sacramento Kings. So not necessarily a team that the Kings have to worry about too much. Maybe, depending upon how the standings shake out, the Kings could end up facing the Timberwolves in the opening round of the playoffs, so it might be a preview at this point as well. We'll have to wait and see. Either way, even if the Kings have a 5.5 game lead, you don't want to see that cut down at all. You want to see the Kings continue to roll, and I have that expectation that the Kings will be able to do that tomorrow night against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, another great thing for the Kings tonight, standings-wise. The Memphis Grizzlies, they lost to the Denver Nuggets tonight, 113-97. So the Kings are now just one game back of the Grizzlies. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have it memorized, but I believe the Grizzlies play the Clippers on Sunday. If that is the case, and the Memphis Grizzlies lose, and the Sacramento Kings win tomorrow night, the Kings on Monday could be a game or half a game back, if that's right. Might be half a game back of the Memphis Grizzlies, which would be incredible going into still a lot of this playoff race to come. Again, I'm telling you, Kings are closer to 2nd than they are to 4th. At 4th place, the Phoenix Suns are 3 games back of the Sacramento Kings. If we're going to talk about movement and standings, I think it's time to shift our focus a little more to the Kings going up and not dropping. But, of course, both are still very possible over the remainder of the season. No matter what happens, we'll, of course, have all the coverage for you here on Locked On Kings. I met so many of you. So many of you came up to me and said hi. I appreciate you so much at the game tonight. Really appreciate that support. Hopefully, I'll see more of you tomorrow. I'm always available. I'm at the top of section 105, 106 is kind of the media area. If you see me, come up, say hi. I'll be happy to come over and chat with you. If you see me walk in the concourse, which I try and do at times, please stop me, say hi. And I would love to thank you in person for supporting the Locked On Kings podcast. And thank you to all of you over the course of the season or over the years who have chatted with me and met me in person. I truly do not take that for granted. Your support is amazing. Let's keep this train rolling. Let's get this Sacramento Kings win streak to 6 tomorrow night. Again, I have the expectation that they are going to do that. From the Golden One Center, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.